wanted the best? You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, this is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There she is, there, lady. When she sings it, that makes it official. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. As always, the Chris Voss Show is the family that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as the rest of your family, because, you know, we've all been that black sheep of the family, haven't we? Isn't everybody technically think of themselves as the black sheep of the family? I don't know. Maybe there's some people who are like, I'm the spoiled one. But just remember, we love you, and you don't get to choose your family, but you get to choose the Chris Voss Show. Just remember, we don't loan you money, okay? Stop asking people, especially you folks in the back. Anyway, guys, we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about his hot new book off the presses. In the meantime, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1, the TikTok, YouTube.com/Chris Voss. And if you want to buy me a coffee, darn it, go to buymeacoffee.com/Chris Voss and refill my cup, if you will, because we drink a lot of coffee on this show. Like, seriously, it's a problem. But it's a good problem to have, I guess, technically. Anyway, we have the author of the new book called The Yielding Warrior, Discovering the Secret Path to Unleashing Your True Potential, out August 17th, 2023. Jeff Patterson joins us on the show. We're going to be getting some insight from him as to how you can live your life better and weller, and just overall, how to be a good human being. How about that for a change? You're like, Chris, why don't you have evil people on the show? Teach people how to be evil. We don't do that, folks. There's enough evil people in the world. Jeff joins us on the show. He's from Portland, Oregon, and has over 36 years of experience practicing and teaching the meditative and martial arts. You don't want to fight this man. As the founder of Northwest Fighting Arts in Portland, Tai Chi Academy, and the Yielding Warrior, where he emphasizes the transformative power of meditative and martial arts practices, particularly the yielding concept. We'll get into that. He has published 2 books and hundreds of instructional videos. He's the founder of the Yielding Warrior online program and has worked with thousands of students. Welcome to the show. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome, Jeff. Welcome to the show. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs.
TheYieldingWarrior.com.
There you go. And you might want to close in on that mic a little bit if you can give us a little bit more mic there. Just step right up into that. There you go. So, Jeff, give us a 30,000 overview. What's in your new book?
The new book is called TheYieldingWarrior.com. It's about the concept of yielding. And in the meditative and martial arts, there's many different concepts and philosophies that we follow. And yielding has always been one of the concepts that I find most interesting, which is what motivated me to put that book together. And the idea of yielding is there's 3 different directions of yielding. There's physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. Physical yielding is the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us seeing who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. And now I can respond with less effort. And so it allows me to deal with people who are bigger and stronger than me. And in any kind of athletics, whether you're playing a contact sport like football or basketball or the combative arts, this skill is very valuable. The idea of
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, to be good at yielding, you have to, 1, be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed, the breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. All of these things take years and years to get to a high level. However, from day 1 in this practice, we start getting to a higher level of awareness and sensitivity, and we can utilize the benefits of that in our own physical well-being. And this would be what I call physical yielding. Then there's also mental yielding. And the idea of mental yielding is once we start to notice those things in more detail inside of ourselves, we also start to know them in more detail, see them more clearly in other people. Say, for example, somebody's out of balance, or they subtly change their facial expression, or the tension in their body, or their overall energetic state. When you can pick up on things right from the beginning, it's easier to make adjustments. So, say, for example, we're having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you. It's If I don't pick up on that from the beginning and I start going off on a tangent, pretty soon I'm so far down that track, you want to knock me upside the head. This isn't good. And so learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is very powerful. One, you're just being more considerate. And two, it allows you to guide conversations in a positive direction, which is very powerful in all of your relationships, in business and sales and negotiations, or pretty much anything you do. And so having that heightened sensitivity is really valuable. And that's what we call mental yielding. Then there's what we call emotional yielding. And emotional yielding is very much like mental yielding, but it's with your own interpersonal conflicts. So you think about, oftentimes something will happen and we'll respond and we'll go down this path, and we might get an hour, a day, a week down that road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with yielding, if we could have taken a step back and maybe analyzed the situation before it started gaining too much momentum in any one direction, a lot of times it can save us a lot of heartache on the other side. And I've been explaining this idea of yielding for years. And one of the most common things I hear people say is that, it makes a lot of sense. I use yielding all the time. And while I would agree, I think everybody uses yielding to some degree all of the time. It's kind of like, if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years, he would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of. The meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and other people that most people go through life and never make those connections because they just don't have that level of awareness.
There you go. So having that level of awareness is important. Is yielding kind of like, isn't there a karate thing that a karate standard or form that does that, where it basically takes, when the power comes at you, it sidesteps that, or it grabs the power and flows it through it? Is that the same sort of principle as yielding?
Yeah, so that would be physical yielding. Yeah, and that's in a lot of martial arts. Tai Chi is kind of like the
Tai Chi.
grandfather of that idea, but
Yeah.
there's been a lot of other arts like jujitsu and aikido that have adapted that concept of yielding in their practice.
And so it's basically using the power and force that maybe is coming at you and using it in a way, or redirecting in a way, or redirecting yourself in a way. Are all three of those true?
Yeah, so it's one, having the sensitivity to be aware of when that force starts to come at you, because if you let it get too far and you're already off balance, it's really hard to respond. But if you can notice it right from the beginning, it allows you to redirect it with the least amount of effort. And, a lot of times in the martial side of things, when I'm teaching people who are very stoic, they'll say, I don't want to yield. That's being weak. I can just overpower them and win. But the idea is you're not being weak when you yield. You're being strategic. You're learning how to position yourself in the place where you can use the least amount of force and effort to get something to where you want it to go.
There you go. You can use this in business a lot too. I can see where, you can see changes in business coming at you, changes in environments, changes in politics or policies of commerce, and you can be like, okay, well, it looks like maybe something's going to change. Innovations, maybe, but I know with Stoicism, though, you mentioned Stoicism, so doesn't Stoicism do a little bit of that, where it's yielding a little bit, you understand and you look at how things are coming at you, instead of getting alarmed by them, you try and read them, I think, with Stoicism.
Yes. So what I was trying to say was, you get somebody who's very stoic and they're very hard and solid in their way. However, it can be more strategic with that as well. But a lot of times when you get that kind of like A-type personality, they just want to make it happen. And when you approach something, even athletics, if you approach football or basketball that way, a lot of times if you can be more strategic and have more finesse, you can be a lot more elusive, and people just don't even understand what you're doing. It's kind of like you're a bit magic, and those are always the fun athletes to watch.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So you wrote the book. Tell us a little bit about your life. What was your upbringing in life, and how did some of the things in life shape you and make you into the person that you are now, the yielding warrior?
Well, I started out with fairly modest means in a single parent family. Uh, didn't have many opportunities. Grew up in a very small town. I knew my only way out was to join the military, so I joined the Marine Corps. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I moved up here to Portland, Oregon. I was the first kid in my whole extended family to go through college. I got 2 degrees in less than 4 years,
Wow.
and my whole family was thinking, oh, he's going to go get some big important job doing something, whatever, in the business area. And when they found out that I started to follow the martial art path, they were all kind of disappointed. And I've heard over and over, when are you going to go get a real job? When are you going to do something important? And I had this teacher back then who once told me, you want to create a life, not make a living. And that really sunk in. And from that point on, I kind of always followed my passion, and that's where it led me to here today.
There you go. You got to follow your passion in life, because nothing's more worse than waking up every day, going to something you hate or don't like, that you have no passion for, and it's just like it will kill you. Really, it kills your soul, I think. And so finding something you love, something you're passionate about, especially as an entrepreneur, is what I always recommend to entrepreneurs. Because for years I did companies that I really wasn't passionate about. They were just investment vehicles. And having something you really love doing makes all the difference between showing up every day. And especially as an entrepreneur, you have to show up every day. It's kind of one of those requirements, I guess. So there it is. So how did you come into meditation?
It's a bit of a funny story. When I was a youth, I was really into Western boxing, and I used to go to this boxing gym that was just a few blocks down the street here from my academy. And I'm not sure if, for those of you that don't know how a boxing gym works, it's not like your traditional class where you go to a gym and there's one instructor and everybody follows along. Usually there's 4 or 5 coaches in the gym, and each one of those coaches might have a handful of fighters that they work with.
Hmm.
Well, at this gym that I was training at, there was one coach there who had actually created national champions, world champion fighters. And I really wanted him to recognize me and start training me. And so I'd always show up at the gym, and I knew he was going to be there. I'd work real hard. I'd show him that I'm disciplined and that I was consistent. And after following him around for about 4 or 5 months, he finally took me on as a fighter. And it was only about 2 or 3 weeks of getting to spend some time with him. He said something to me that changed my life forever. And that he said, you should really start doing the meditative arts, doing meditation and Tai Chi if you want to be a good boxer. And remember, I'm this young kid thinking, how is this going to help me? I thought Tai Chi was for old people in the park. And yeah, I started doing the practice though, and it changed my life in so many ways. And through the years, I've had thousands of students come through the program, and I've seen hundreds of people's lives positively influenced by adopting a meditation into their life.
Nice. Meditation is really important. Oh, why do you feel it's important, and why it can help people?
So many ways. I've seen people coming in here with anxiety, dealing with
Hmm.
depression. They're wanting to stay healthier into their older years. They're wanting to improve their creativity, to improve their focus in athletics. I mean, there's so many different things. If you look at professional athletes today, a lot of professional athletes are turning to the meditative arts to help improve their game. A lot of business professionals and executives are turning to meditation to help learn how to deal with the stress. There's just so many different benefits of the practice.
Yeah, most definitely. So how do you have, or how do you achieve optimal performance during meditation?
The meditation itself isn't something we're looking to find the optimal performance with. It's the idea of using a meditative lifestyle and incorporating ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices into your life, which helps improve your performance in anything else that you do. And what I mean by that is a ritual practice is something where you set a little bit of time aside every day and you unplug from electronics. You're not listening to audios, you're not watching any videos, and you're just kind of turning inside and doing either a movement meditation, a still meditation, a qigong set, something where it's that reconnection with yourself every day. Then there's active practices, and these are things that we can integrate into our day when we're walking down the street or standing in line at the grocery store. And they could be done in as little as 60 seconds. And they're just kind of ways to bring our attention back to our center and start living the lifestyle. Because, the meditation's meant to be more of a way of life and a lot less of a hobby that we do once in a while. And so
Mhm.
by integrating these active practices into our day, it's very helpful to more live the practice. Then there's also the philosophical side, which these can be used as either active or ritual based practices.
There you go. And having that peace of mind. There's so much anxiety in the world. There's so much stimuli for anxiety in the world. Whether it's politics, social media, news. Our own issues that we have with ourselves or with maybe the world and finances. I get anxiety from just thinking about anxiety. So, what are the three types of meditation? Ritual, active, and philosophical. What are these about?
So the ritual practices can be anything from a sitting practice to a movement practice like Tai Chi or Qigong. It's where you set that time aside every day and just kind of focus on maybe 20 minutes of time where you're reconnecting with yourself. And through the years, one of the most common things that I've heard people say is, I tried meditation, but I can't quiet my mind. It just doesn't work for me.
Hmm?
And it's only because they misunderstand the purpose of the practice. Meditation isn't meant to be this thing where we go off and live in nirvana. It's the idea that we learn how to use this, whether we're doing breath work or sitting meditation, a standing meditation, or a movement exercise. And if you're doing that for, say, 20 minutes, you might get distracted and your mind might wander 50 times. But
Hmm.
every time your mind wanders, you use the movement or the breath or the posture to bring yourself back to center. So if
Hmm.
you do that 50 times every 20 minutes and you're doing that every day for 1 month, 5 months, a year, pretty soon you get so good at having these distractions and coming back to that central equilibrium and that center focus. Now, when you're walking down the street and somebody says something negative to you or something stressful happens at your business, it's easy to bring yourself back to center and find that place of peace within yourself so you can respond with a more educated approach rather than letting your emotions get involved. And so
Hmm.
that's something that I think everybody who's thinking about taking on the practice should understand, that your ritual practice is meant to be something that you work with and take time with. Then you asked about the active practices. We briefly touched on those already, but they can be as simple as maybe counting out 10 breaths and just reconnecting with your breath. Oftentimes, I read a statistic once that the average person uses 40 to 60% of their lung capacity.
Hmm.
If you're only using 40% of your lung capacity, your energy levels are going to feel depleted. You need to exercise your lungs so the material in your lungs is pliable and elastic so you can have more breath and more energy. One of the main energy centers that we have comes from the oxygen we breathe and that oxygen carbon dioxide exchange. And if we're only halfway there, that's going to be very depleting. They did a study at Harvard Medical School, which I found really interesting, in that they took a bunch of patients who were suffering from Alzheimer's and memory loss, and they put them in these oxygen chambers and had them doing deep breathing for a short period of time. And it didn't take much time at all. And their memory, on average, improved 30% in a very short amount of time. So if this one thing, and it's common that as people age, they start to breathe more shallowly. So if we can focus on our breath and tap into that full breath and use more of our lung capacity, that alone right there is reason enough for me to want to do the practice. Now, then there's the philosophical side of things, and the philosophical practices can be something as simple as a mantra you say, or a saying that you go through, something as a vibration or a sound that helps generate a specific energy. There's a lot of different things that we can do and integrate those into either the ritual practices or the active practices.
Nice. Nice. You made me realize something that maybe, I drink a lot of coffee. Let's just put it that way. Maybe when I'm feeling depleted energy wise and I'm going for coffee, I need to think how I'm breathing, because I do like what you say, probably run on about 40% of my breath. And I'm sitting here at the office and I start to get little, I just kind of, I can tell I'm short on breath. And so, like, maybe I need to do some breathing exercises, some meditation, instead of going and getting another coffee.
A small recommendation for you is set an
Uh-huh.
alarm on your phone to go off every 60 minutes and just count out 10 deep breaths at the end of every 60 minutes. And eventually, you're going to start getting in the habit of breathing deeper. And that's a very helpful tool you can use.
What do you think about one of the things I've been dealing with lately is sleep apnea. And I don't know if you have any feelings about that, but I started taping my mouth during sleep apnea. Some people say I should tape my mouth during the show. But I do that for sleep apnea, and I don't know, maybe that strengthens your lungs or your breathing. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I just figured I'd throw it out.
I have no idea if taping your mouth is going to help improve your lung capacity, but it might.
Some people think it'll help the podcast. So there's something else you talk about that's called the 5 regulations that will lead to a healthier life. Don't do drugs, kids. Is that one of them? No, I'm just kidding.
No, yeah. So the 5 regulations is used in any meditative practice, whether you're doing yoga, sitting meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong. And there basically is regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. Regulating the body, an example of that would be, think about a time maybe you're sitting in front of your computer and your shoulders are round forward and you're there for 3 or 4 hours and you start feeling depleted. And then also think about a time when maybe the most important person in your life walks into the room and your body perks up and your correct alignment. And think about those 2 energetic states, often very strongly affected just by how we're holding our posture. And regulating the body is one of the easiest regulations to integrate into our life. In holding correct alignment and posture, you can build the habit of that in a fairly short amount of time, 2 or 3 months of consistent effort, and you just start living that way. Then there's regulating the breath. And regulating the breath is a life practice. Oftentimes Qigong is referred to as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies. And in Qigong theory, the Chinese refer to it as balancing the Kan and Li, or the water and fire. And basically what it is we're using the yin side of the breath and the yang side of the breath to get different energetic states. And say, for example, if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And that's the body's natural way of bringing your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. So if you want to emulate that, you can do longer inhales, maybe soft retentions at the end of the inhale, and this will help bring that energy inward, which is very good for stress reduction, dealing with anxiety, very good for getting to deeper levels of meditation if you're doing more holistic style meditations. And then there's the flip side of that, where we work on the yang side of the breath. And an example of that would be if you ever had to push your car, or you pick up something heavy, your natural instinct is use the exhale side of the breath, put tension in the breath, make the breath audible. This helps generate energy and power and creativity. And so when we start understanding how to use the breath, we can do it to get different physical, mental, and emotional outcomes. Oftentimes, we all do this to some degree. We go through the day with emotional ups and downs. Some of us are a little more balanced. Some of us are a little bit like a roller coaster. But when you start learning how to use the breath as a strategy, when you see those imbalances taking place, you can use the breath to help make those adjustments. And so now, instead of being like a roller coaster, which is very energetic, energy draining, we can stay a little bit more even and conserve our energy and put that in a positive direction.
There you go.
Then so that would be an example of the breath regulation. Then there is the mental side of things. And the mental regulation, again, this is a lifelong practice. And there's this story that one of my old teachers used to tell us about these two monks that are walking down this dirt road after a big rainstorm. And they come across this puddle, and on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful lady in a white dress, and she's crying. And the older monk says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "Yes, I need to get somewhere, and I don't want to get my dress all muddy." And so he rolls up his pant legs and walks over the puddle and picks her up, puts her on his back, and carries her to the other side, sets her down, and she's off on her way. And the two monks start walking a couple miles down the road, and the younger monk, he's just furious. And he's like, we're not supposed to touch women, but you still did there back at the puddle. And he looks down at the younger monk and he says, "You're still thinking about that lady? I left her back there at the puddle." And we do that in our life all the time, where these things will happen to us, these negativities, these distractions, and we'll start letting a minute tick by, an hour tick by, sometimes even longer. And we'll build up so much negative momentum that it's very hard to let go. But the meditative arts helps us recognize those imbalances right from the beginning and brings us back to center, so we're more in control of those distractions that happen to us mentally all the time.
There you go. And it sounds like that's something that can really calm you down, get you right. I think one thing I was thinking about when you're talking was I may need to use the meditation and breathing more when I need to sleep. I'm really bad at going to bed and watching TikTok videos until I fall asleep, and then usually I'm up for 2 hours watching TikTok. And I'm sure I'm shallow breathing during it because, I don't know, I'm laughing or something. But I need to use breath work more to maybe put myself to sleep.
Breathing will help you. Doing a lot of the yin style breathing will definitely calm you down and get you in that state ready to have a good night's sleep.
There you go. There you go. So what else do you do on your website? I noticed there's some work on your website that you take and offer people. Why don't we get into some of the services that you provide there and how people can work with you there?
So we have an online program that teaches people how to build a personalized meditation program using movement practices, still practices, breath work, some of the philosophy, and have an evolving practice and have a purpose for why you're doing it. Because you could go on YouTube and find a zillion videos on this meditation and this movement practice and the other. And it really can be distracting because there's so many different things out there. If you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, a lot of times you can waste a lot of time. I've literally had students come in here that tell me that they've been practicing meditation for 10 years and they'll come in here and be frustrated because they'll see some of the students who have only been here 6 months to a year are much more advanced than them. And it's
Mm-hmm.
because it's important to have a guide, to have somebody kind of help point you in the right direction, and also to understand why you're doing the practice. With any meditative practice, you could do it for the athletic side of the practice, the therapeutic side, the medical side, the philosophical side, or more of the meditative or spiritual side of the training. And they're all not the same. One practice fits all for all of those categories. So that's the first thing. We also have a teacher training program. So if you're somebody who owns a martial arts academy or a yoga studio, or you're a life coach and you want to integrate these ideas of helping your clients learn how to integrate the meditative arts into their life, you
Mm-hmm.
could follow that path as well.
There you go. And so they can go on your website, check out the courses that you have there, or reach out to you. Is that correct?
Yes.
So let's see. And I think you in your programs, you've got some different offerings there. Noticed the membership area. Is there a membership area for members that they can log in? And is there an online community or something? Or
Yeah, so there's the membership portal where somebody could do a personalized practice where there's hundreds of videos up there and teaching you about the movement practices, still meditation, breath work, the philosophical side of the training. And that's for like an individual. And then
Mhm.
in the meditate or in the membership area as well, there's also the levels of teacher training. And then we have 3 levels of teacher training there where somebody could get involved if they want to um, hand down these arts and learn kind of more in-depth practices with them.
There you go. There you go. So give us your final thoughts as we go out. Tell people how they can onboard with your service. How they can reach out to you, maybe see if there's a good fit, maybe get coaching by you, et cetera, et cetera.
So you could go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book and get a free copy of my latest book, just pay for shipping and handling. Or you could go to theyieldingwarrior.com and check out our online program there, as well as our teacher training program. We're running a special right now there where if you just want to test it out, you can try it out for a couple weeks and see if it's the right fit for you. One of the things that I recommend and find very valuable as somebody new coming to the practice, it's really important to think about why you're doing the practice. Are you wanting to do it to improve your health? Are you dealing with anxiety or depression? Or you wanting to improve your performance? If you have those good, strong whys, it's a lot easier to not hit the snooze button when you get up in the morning, to get up and do your practice.
There you go. Get up and do it. And so is meditation better in the morning or at night? I imagine both might be good, but is meditation better in the morning?
It's good at all hours. There's different energies at different times of the day that you can tap into with the practice. I've personally find I like to do it first thing in the morning because then there's no excuses or busyness that gets in the way, and I always get it done every day.
There you go. I found that early last year. I started doing a thing where in the morning I would, with my cup of coffee, I'd go out and do like this multitasking sort of feature where I'd go out into the yard, play with my dogs. They like me to be out there with them, sit in the sun to get my vitamin D for about 20 minutes, restart my circadian rhythms, so maybe I'll sleep better, and just breathe in some fresh air and kind of meditate. I'd read usually Marcus Aurelius Meditations or some other Stoic books for a couple pages, and then just kind of ponder what that was about, have a little bit of gratitude out there, and kind of enjoy nature and the world. It gave me a perspective where you're like, it's a pretty big world out there. It's a pretty beautiful world, instead of just logging on the computer and like the whole world's like, So it gave me a much better grounding and foundation than just loading on the computer and suddenly everyone on email is shouting at you, everyone on Facebook is shouting at you. The news is like, the world's on fire. Little chicken, what was that chicken running around? The sky is falling, that sort of thing. So there you go. Give us your .coms as we go out, Jeff, so people can find you on the interwebs.
Yieldingwarrior.com, and you could go to the Yielding Warrior and all the social media channels as well.
There you go. Thank you very much, Jeff, for being on the show. We really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. And thanks, our audience, for tuning in. Order up the book wherever fine books are sold. And why don't you get the plug in here for your book? People get a free copy of your book. Let's get a plug in for that so people know where to get a copy of that with shipping.
You can get that on Amazon, or you can get a free copy at my website, theyieldingwarrior.com/book.
There you go. Order up, folks, wherever fine books are sold. The Yielding Warrior, discovering the secret path to unleashing your true potential. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.